We're going to do this every week. It's going to be YouTube exclusive NBA content. We're calling it 10 good minutes. Bill Walton in his last season, 34 years old, 86, 87, played 11 minutes. So, he still tried to give you 10 good minutes. And found the season he gave you more than 10, which is likely what's going to happen every single time I do this. We're also going to open it up some NBA mailbag stuff that we'll do at the end of all of these visits. So YouTube exclusive, please subscribe to this page. And again, a reminder of the podcast, the first episode with Barstool will be next Monday. That is November 3rd. So Wemby, prior to this season, I think he was an idea. He was an idea of what is possible with a body like this and a talent level, a combination of things we've just never, ever seen before. Unicorn does apply here. It's used too often, but it does apply. But when you're the best prospect since LeBron James, it's not even about being a guy that is on multiple all-star teams. It's not about winning an MVP. It's not even really about winning a title. It's, can you be the best player in the league for multiple years? And can you, when it's all said and done 20 years from now, be considered one of the greatest to ever play the game? I mean, when you think about that kind of stuff, like on draft night, so many of the number one picks, it's like, can this guy be a face of the franchise? Can you win with this guy? Can this guy truly be a number one? And those true number ones, to me, that list is always less than 10 players in the NBA. It's probably closer to 5 than it even is 10. But when you go number one, that's what the hope is. And then there's somebody like Wemby who, again, since LeBron, 20-year stretch, like that's not even good enough. So as good as he's been in his first 2 years, especially defensively, there was always some offensive stuff with him where I'm like, okay, he settles a bit too much for threes. He'll grow into his body more. He's obviously going to get that man strength. Some people it takes a little bit longer. But from what I've seen the first 4 games, like it's no longer an idea. It is all on the table of what he is capable of doing. That Dallas game to start the season, I think if you listen to me or watch me over the years, like as I was typing it out, I sent it out on Threads and X. But as I was sending it, and this is what I said, I was like, I think Wemby just finished one of the best games I've ever seen. I've ever seen like a single game that a player could play in. He just played one of the greatest games I've ever seen a player play. And I said it because I felt it, even though I'm like, are you really going to do this the first game of the season for a guy, the third year into the NBA? And I was like, yeah, that's the kind of game I saw from somebody. And it was funny, Sam Vecini, who we love having on because he's such a great draft guy. He sent me a text. It's like, I saw you say that last night. And I immediately thought like, oh my God, like, come on. Like, that's going to be ridiculous. He's like, but I hadn't watched the game yet. He's like, I actually don't think it's a crazy thing to say. I was like, yeah, that one game, I think it's one of the best games I've ever seen anybody play. It's not just what he does every single time anybody's trying to make a decision with him lurking, but you can see that the strength is there. But think about this. Dallas is a big team. He has AD one-on-one. He's 7'5" or more, and he's keeping his dribble alive in traffic around defenders. AD cuts him off, and he keeps the dribble alive and then attacks at a different angle and then finishes against Anthony Davis. Like it wasn't a problem for him whatsoever. There's off-ball cutting with him now where he's starting to realize, like, if I just get a little deeper positionally here, like this is a problem now. Like as long as I do my work early, if I'm off the ball, there was another play against Dallas where he didn't like his initial position. He thought he was too far out. He was kind of at the break on the 3-point line inside of that, and he had a smaller defender on him. So the Spurs were smart enough to kind of keep the point guard at the top, 3 to the other side, so there couldn't be an easier help defender in that moment. But Wemby didn't like how he had the ball, right? Like he understood it in this moment. I love this play so much. Like he didn't really like it yet. Got it back to the guard at the top and didn't like dive down to the block to repost, but just got himself a little deeper, a little bit better position, then demanded the ball back and then attacked the defender and ends up scoring. And you're like, okay, these are not just made shots. These aren't just fancy dunks. This is an understanding happening right in front of our face of like him understanding what he needs to do and also understanding like I might be this much of a problem once I get the ball where I need it to be. And you can look at the 3-point numbers. Last year he took what 9 threes a game. He hit enough to justify it, but so far this season it's going to go up. It's only at 3 a game. His free throw number is usually 4 or 5 per game in the first 2 seasons. He's at 10. The Brooklyn game, he had the back-to-back block possession and then gets the ball, hits the logo 3. He had an off-ball cut where he's starting to realize, like, if I bring it up, and this is the thing, like, you don't need to show off and have him bring the ball up like a 7'5" point guard and then everybody kind of figure out what they're going to do. You need him to be purposeful. and the purpose and the intensity with which he's playing now, like these off ball cuts where I'll see him go, I know exactly what I'm doing. Like it's going to be so much easier for me to get to from point A to point B without the ball than having some smaller defender just swipe at me the entire time. If I can just get it off to somebody else, but then he knows that I'm going to be diving and get it right back to me, because also here's the other thing. It's like throwing a back of the end zone pass to the best receiver who's also bigger than everybody else. Like those throws that we don't love in the NFL on a Sunday, you're like, you're just going to dial that one up. Like that thing never works. With him, he's always going to be able to catch the ball back because you can't make him a bad pass, especially obviously if you're going up. Um, I love it. I absolutely love it. I think it's been so impressive that I think any absurd Wembanyama statement is on the table. Like I'm okay with it. If you want to get crazy, go crazy, because this is how great the start's been. Want to run through a bunch of things from the start of the season here. Giannis is just off to an absurd number. You want to talk about big guys that can handle. His line right now is 36, 14, and 7, 70% from the floor. Uh, you could even argue he's making his threes, but we don't like those bailout threes from him. We don't like him from Wemby. We really don't like him from Giannis because they don't go in enough. And Milwaukee's 3-1. They beat the Knicks last night. Not a great offensive night from the Knicks, but the deciding quarter, the third quarter, where Giannis, I think once he decides that it's his time, I think he makes you feel him and just what he's doing out there more than any single player in the NBA. And that's why even with SGA like winning an MVP, I would still never put SGA ahead of Jokic and certainly not Giannis. Maybe not even Luka, but that's fine. That's fine. We don't have to turn this into an SGA thing here again because of the vote last year. It appears that Milwaukee, their entire plan and why, the Turner acquisition, the number is not that bad. It kind of gets baked into the little thing and them having to be creative. So, like, I give them credit for being creative, but then there are also times like we're really going to freak out, spend this much time on Miles Turner at this stage of his career. But this is kind of the point. It's why Brooke Lopez was so important to them, because you needed somebody who could rim protect, but also always be like a player who at 5 wants to be a stretch 5 really well. Like plenty of guys want to shoot threes. They probably shouldn't shoot threes. Milwaukee, just fundamentally next to Giannis, it always has to be that kind of player. And that's why the Turner thing was like even more important to them, even with all the restrictions on just, well, what could they actually pull off? And then they pull off something nobody really saw coming because they're just going to eat all the Lillard money, right? So the plan appears to be from Doc Rivers in this group is like 4 shooters at all times and just hope that Giannis, like he's not going to keep this up all season long, but if he's healthy, he's going to be nuts. I mean, he's going to be a top 3 MVP guy with this kind of stuff. And there's just some simple things, Tarico's just so good on the call. Why Tarico's so good at both football and basketball is that he actually understands the game and he sees the game in front of him, and just some really simple stuff. Like if Giannis is bringing it up and he gets in this little 2-man game with AJ Green and the Giannis wall is set up, right? And, he makes New York pay for it. You could just see that Giannis it's totally like sometimes basketball is so simple. This isn't a play. It's just, hey, let's keep AJ and Giannis next to each other. Let's have maybe AJ even set a screen. So you just know that both people are going to be worried about Giannis on the drive. And now next thing you know, AJ Green's just taking open threes all over the place. So Turner should be able to hit him. I don't know what's going to happen here with Kuzma. The non-Giannis minutes, that offense is kind of like, is it a Portis Kuzma thing? But one of the best things, maybe the single best thing from last night is Ryan Rollins. This guy's 23. He's been on now his 3rd stop. He played with the Bucks last year. He lit it up on offense. He's 40% from 3 now, like 80 plus games in his career. So you kind of feel like that's real. Again, he's only 23 years old, but his defense on top of everything else, if you want to talk about a guy that makes you feel him when he was out there, the Knicks had to feel Ryan Rollins out there. And maybe the best thing about the Rollins part of this is it maybe ends the Kevin Porter Jr. point guard thing before it ever really got started, because I don't like it. He's missed a bunch of games with the ankles. He only played 1 game, but Rollins being this good, I mean, he's worth paying attention to, because that's like, is it a game changer? Now the Bucks are the favorites and all that kind of stuff. Like, let's not get carried away. But you know what they're going to do. They're just going to try to space this stuff out. But if Rollins becomes like a real guy that they can trust, and on top of that, he's playing defense, because it looks like with Milwaukee, they've this first weekend been one of the best shooting teams in the NBA. The offensive numbers are pretty good. I think the plan would probably be, hey, can we be top 12 defensively with an MVP caliber Giannis season and guys hitting enough shots around us? Like, is there a way? And can we get into the playoffs and get to 4 wins against maybe not a scary team here? Like, I can see it all happening. The crazy part will be if it's still not good enough and it's a nasty exit or something like that. Like, is a good start actually bad for the Bucks than the Giannis decision that they probably, you can make an argument they should have already made. All right, Knicks offense. There's a lot of talk about how it's going to be different with Mike Brown, head coach. There's some numbers that I was digging through here, and like anybody that's ever been dumped and then gets a second chance, like that's when you're the best. You've never been better in your entire life. You're doing all sorts of shit. And it's a lot of stuff that you're probably not going to be keep doing. So whenever a team is installing like a new offense, hey, we want more touches, we want more movement, we don't want to get stagnant, we don't want to be heliocentric, which is the Jalen Brunson offense, which is also kind of a lot of fun to watch. And you could say, well, if you made it to the Eastern Conference Finals with this last year, was that actually good enough? Or is it, hey, we need to have more variety if we want to think we can get through the East. I understand both parts of that conversation here. But when they started last night's game, you're like, this is a team that is on a mission to prove that they're going to play a little bit different offensively. And then you always kind of wonder, are you going to revert back to who you actually want to be? And is Jalen Brunson going to be cool with this kind of stuff? They didn't make enough shots to keep up with the 3-point shooting that Milwaukee had last night. So, the whole offensive remake of the Knicks is not the reason why they lost the game last night. But I was looking at some of the possession numbers for Jalen Brunson. So I always look at like touches, time of possession, average seconds with the ball. You can even look at like dribbles per possession because guess what? Like Jalen Brunson across the board last year is one of the top guys in the NBA. Touches. Jalen was eighth in the NBA last year at 85 touches a game. Well, now he's at 97 touches. Well, what does that mean? Well, if he's getting more touches, that mean the ball in his hands more? Well, it actually means a little bit that they're trying to get the ball moving more than it was last year because time of possession, Brunson had the ball in his hands for the longest amount of time per possession of any single player in the NBA last year. By the way, this year it's Keontae George. That probably shouldn't happen in the NBA. This year, though, it's a second less, but he's fifth. But here's where I think there's at least a bit of a difference. It's the average seconds per touch. It's the dribbles per touch, where Jalen Brunson was first in the NBA in both of those categories last year. And there's a significant drop off in the average seconds per touch now for Brunson, where now he's 27th. It's like a second and a half. The dribble numbers are down. He's like 29th in dribbles per touch when he was first last year. So there is a priority to try to, even though he's going to have a million touches because he's Jalen Brunson, and he should, it's let's be quicker with the touches, and it's probably going to take a little bit of time there. I also think it's funny too when you look at Mike Brown being in. It's like, well, now they've got some depth, and it's like, yeah, it's also because Tibbs isn't going to play any of those guys. Like Kolek, the point guard, he was. If you would ask teams before the NBA draft when he came out a couple years ago, was, hey, who do you kind of like a little bit later on? He was brought up so many times to me by teams. And, I think there's something you can see that you can work with there. And it's like, was the depth actually there last year and the other coaches wouldn't play him? So they got a little creative with the restrictions financially on having depth when it seemed impossible with how much they're paying their top five guys. But there's also a bit of humor in the idea that there's this discovered depth when it's like, yeah, or they're actually just playing some of the other guys that have been on the team. So whatever. I'm not going to freak out about the Knicks offense here. It's probably going to take a little time to break some of the habits that generally work for them to win a ton of big games. OKC, midseason form. You know who's not in midseason form? Me, trying to watch the NBA right now. I feel like a man in a nursing home who's just been gifted a VCR and been told to set it up. I know I'm going to figure it out. I don't want to sound like an old guy complaining about all the different devices and the subscriptions. Like, look, this is my life. I'm paying for the subscriptions. I'm not going to bitch about it. I've got a nice life. All right. I like me, John Candy. But what I'm saying is it's been a rough start. It's been a rough start. I'm not going to complain about it, but I think I've said what I needed to say. Like I'm sure that old guy in the nursing home was fired up to watch Patton on VHS. Patton, but there's been I'm like, do I not have access to this game? Where's this app taking me? Oh, I'm blacked out on a Utah Jazz game. Like that doesn't make a ton of sense. All right. So OKC is in midseason form, undefeated. Look, they got it rolling coming back against Sacramento last night with AJ Mitchell playing big minutes. Do you know what he's scoring a game right now? Thunder fans do. Does anyone else outside of OKC know that AJ Mitchell's scoring 18 points per game? Like how unfair is this roster? Jalen Williams, one, isn't even playing yet. Chet's already missed a game. Caruso's missed a couple games. Granted, they started the season with just back-to-back OT, double OT thrillers. But, you know, AJ Mitchell was 11th in minutes last season for this team. It's like, hey, can you go out and make a ton of really smart plays and get us some buckets on top of everything else? 18 a game for AJ Mitchell. Houston monitoring the situation. Amen Thompson at point guard was a little worried about it. They kind of have to do it with Van Vliet being out. And then there's the Reed Shepard component, which I'll bring up here in a second. But he had two plays on Monday were just off the dribble, back to back. It was actually, I think, back to back possessions where he just worked it off the dribble and dunked it. And you can say, well, look, he's a freak. Of course he's going to dunk it. But there's something to be said when the possession is yours. And everybody knows the possession is yours. And it's not just a high ball screen where now you're, like I've got the angle and whatever. It was kind of a moment of like, I'm a little stuck. Can I get through this? And he did it. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to be Steve Nash or anything like that, but I do like that they're going to try this, even if it reminds me. Well, I shouldn't say it reminds me of the Sohan point guard experiment with the Spurs a couple years ago. But looking at the start and them being a little frustrated probably about the offense, they have the OKC loss. The Detroit loss isn't a bad loss, but they didn't go double big last night. So I don't know. There could have been something from the post game that I had missed on that. Maybe it's as simple as playing Brooklyn, because if you're worried about your offense, playing Brooklyn's a nice remedy for that. They're last in defense in the NBA, behind the 29th defensive ranked Phoenix Suns. But just looking here at the Adams minutes, he played 16 minutes against Brooklyn. He played 37 against OKC against the double overtime game, 25 against Detroit. Just because I think the Adams double big thing with Şengün is fun in some matchups. I'm still not sure that I love it when you probably want a little bit more spacing out there. And Adams is just somebody who, even if he's wide open from the elbow, which is a shot he had at Pitt, it's a shot that I thought was going to make him a really well-rounded offensive player. Instead, he had Westbrook screaming at him for the basketball for a really good chunk of his career, even on offensive rebounds. And PJ Tucker was defending him, and it was 2 feet away from the rim, and then he would turn around and just kick it back out to everybody else. All right. Reed Shepard getting 24 minutes a game. They have to, because, one of the things with front office is it's not like they forced their hand in this scenario, but like Dylan Brooks and Jalen Green are out and Van Vliet is out because of the injury. So if Reed Shepard isn't playing this year, then something's incredibly wrong. I didn't love the Reed Shepard possessions to start the season against OKC. That was like a Western Conference Finals intensity game on opening night for those two teams. And then Reed Shepard getting real minutes and then setting up the offense, running into these Wolverines from the Thunder probably wasn't like the best way to start it off, because he was getting stuck a lot and it really bothered me. And I was like, come on, man, like you're just going to be coming off a screen, flying around, you're indecisive. And now all of a sudden, Kason Wallace is all over you. Lou Dort's in your ass. Like, you don't need this. It's gotten a little bit better. 15 and 8 last night on the assist number, 24 minutes a game for him. And Okogie's playing. So Adams didn't start. I don't know if it's any kind of bigger picture thing. We'll continue to monitor. I'm going to do that for you. Okogie's playing. He's the 8th guy now. And it's like a significant drop off. Okogie's playing 8th minutes. And then 9th minutes is Capella, who's like a 9 minutes a game right now. So, whatever. A lot of work to do. A lot of games to go. Because if you have these vets as options, coaches will play them. I submit the Washington Wizards. CJ and Middleton, both on this team, 2nd and 5th in minutes. And CJ's leading the Wizards in fourth quarter minutes per game. He's at like almost 8 minutes in the fourth quarter. So that leads everybody. Close with Sarr, Bub, and Kispert's getting some run here. I've liked the Trey Johnson stuff here early on. Look, Sarr, you want to get into the idea of where we started, right? The idea of Sarr. He's a big dude who's really comfortable dribbling in transition. It's at times somewhat impressive. I mean, it still can be clunky a little bit because it's like, well, what are you actually going to be? Hey, man, it's the second year. Let him figure it out. But there are glimpses. There are little moments you're like, damn, like, all right, that's why that guy got drafted as high as he did. Important to note on Sarr, because I think it was a big storyline from this game last night. Philly's now 4-0. They're overwhelming people with this firepower combo trio of Maxey, Edgecombe, who's everybody's favorite rookie right now, and Quentin Grimes, old friend Quentin Grimes. These three dudes, what they did to Boston to start the year, the comeback, then getting in an overtime against the Wizards, this firepower is like now overwhelming. Now, this number is not going to hold up, but these three guys are combining for 22 3-point attempts per game, and they're hitting like 11. So they're like 50, maybe they might be collectively like over 50%. Because I was just kind of rounding the numbers here to get the notes down for you quickly this morning. So those three guys are lighting it up. Bona defensively is a terror. Like if you're not ready for him to just help on the weak side of a drive, like you have to start thinking about this guy. And he had a couple huge ones last night. The reason I bring up the SAR part of it is because Embiid and I are not getting off to a great start collectively on the season. I'll admit, like that game against Boston, I was like, eesh, all right, minutes restriction. Like, let him work himself into shape, but it was ugly, and it's really ugly defensively. If you're playing Embiid in a game right now and your center isn't running full speed to beat him down at the end of the court, then you should be benching your center for not doing it because there's all these free points. If Embiid's the last guy back, he has no problem just letting you run right past him right now. And that's, I'm not going to get mean or nasty about it. That's where he's at right now. It's a minutes restriction. Okay, fine. And then when it was the decision when I watched the Orlando game where they were just better than Orlando. Orlando, we get some time for you coming up here soon because what is going on, guys? When I saw the lineup against Orlando, I'm like, okay, so Embiid's not playing the back-to-back, but he's not going to play against Orlando, but he's going to play against the Wizards. I'm like, come on, man. Like, this is the old Duck and Jokic thing. So I didn't love it. I didn't love it when it happened. And then 10 seconds into that game last night, Embiid gets some awful free throw gift call where he's like at the break 3-point line, one dribble in, flails, gets the call on SAR. And I got worked up. I got a little upset. I was like, are you really going to do this for 2.5 hours? And you're like, well, you don't have to because he's on a minutes restriction. Here's the good thing about it, though. This is the good part of the Embiid thing is SAR got Embiid a few times, and you could see it kind of pissed off Embiid, and the competitive juices started then there was a little bit more decisiveness and purpose. I'm going to use that word a lot, but there was something with Embiid where it was like the competitive part of him, the thing that you need to see for him to even come close to being the player that he was at some point, some competitive personal pride. I mean, unless he's just so hurt, it's never going to be the same, which is probably the safer bet and all this kind of stuff. But you could see that he was moving with a little bit more attitude after SAR had beaten him the way he'd beaten him a couple times, with Embiid just barely defending him at all. Now, here's the other part of this that's weird. And again, this has a lot more to do with Embiid defensively. So I was looking at the fourth quarter stuff with the minutes restrictions because the comeback against Boston without Embiid, the comeback last night against the Wizards without Embiid being in the game, I think he ended up like 23 minutes last night. So if you look at Embiid right now, 21 minutes a game on the season for the Sixers, so that's sixth on the team. But if you look at where he's at in the fourth quarter, he's playing 3.7 minutes in the fourth quarter. Okay. That's when he's even played in them. So the NBA rating stuff here is absurd because the Sixers, again, are undefeated. Unbelievable, right? They're a plus 50 in net rating in the fourth quarter. Like, that's not a real number. It's not going to be a real number. It's not sustainable. But right now, the story is that when he's out of there and not playing, and what they've been able to do, again, not necessarily the greatest opponents, but it doesn't matter because, like, what were your Sixers' expectations if Embiid and George aren't even playing? And they're the fifth best defense and by far the number one offense in the fourth quarter, a plus 50 net rating for the Sixers in the fourth. So we'll see how that one shakes out. I think next week we're going to redraft the 2026 NBA draft. Just want to get ahead of it. And we're going to open it up to your questions as well. NBA mailbag rr@gmail.com and submit. We might even get back to some of the old school stuff, trades that are terrible that deep down you really like or whatever. Just maybe answer one or two of these each show here on YouTube. Again, this will be an NBA exclusive YouTube thing that we'll do. This will not run on the pod. 10 good minutes, which will always go over 10 minutes. Talk to you next week. And again, subscribe to the Ryen Russillo show on Barstool, wherever you get your podcast. The first episode drops November 3rd.